Hi, I'm Greta Oliver. Welcome to the EducateU podcast, your roadmap to learning tips, techniques, and strategies to enable your student to successfully navigate the road to and through higher education. Hello, everyone. Today's guest on the Maximizing Your College Experience segment of EducateU is Dr. Larry Moneta. Dr. Moneta served as Vice President for Student Affairs at Duke University from 2001 to 2019, when he retired to a life of consulting, teaching, and grandparenting. At Duke, he led the central planning, policy formation, and coordinating agency for the university concerning student issues. With a wealth of experience to draw from, Dr. Moneta will speak to us today about how students can bloom where they're planted on college campuses. Please join me in welcoming Dr. Larry Moneta to EducateU.
Thank you, Greta. What a pleasure to be with you today.
I am just thrilled to get to talk to you. As I just said, you are just Mr. Student Affairs, I should say. And I have a lot of just respect for you. I take my hat off to you for anyone who has been working on the behalf of students for so many years, not only at Duke, but at other institutions. And so when we're talking about maximizing college experience, I want to kind of point out to our viewers that the entire time that I have been on EducateU and throughout my book, I'm talking about college fit and how students should really be going for college fit. That's exactly what they need to be looking for, fit on a campus. But you know, and I know that that doesn't always work out. Sometimes students will actually not be able to get on a college that, on a campus that they really wanted to go to, or maybe they were able to get more financial aid somewhere else, or maybe they weren't even admitted. And so there's a lot of different reasons why students may not get on their first choice of campus. But for the students, wherever they land, what I need from you is for you to be able to explain to these students and their parents what kind of things should they do to be able to bloom where they're planted, to maximize their experience and get every bit of what they are going to college out of that college experience.
Well, can I back up for a second and talk about that word fit for just a moment? Because I worry sometimes that the notion of fit gets misunderstood. There's sort of the macro version of fit and the micro version of fit. And I've met many students who sort of get into their head a narrow notion of what the right school would be for them. And they become extraordinarily disappointed when they don't get into that very narrow selection. When in fact, for most students, there are many institutions that would fit for them. And I think we overemphasize the pedigree, Ivy, those kinds of schools. Students take on way more debt than they need to. So the first thing I would say is, I hope the students who learn from you come to understand that, take some time to really understand what fit means for you. What's the area of study that you want to focus on, and which are the schools that have that? What are the other characteristics that are important to you? I've said to students, if climate is important to you and you really don't want to be in a winter climate, don't go.
Right, absolutely.
There are many institutions and many climates and many institutions, but to me, the right kinds of characteristics are: what size school do you want? What's the affordability of the institution for you? How good is the specific program you're interested in studying? Don't worry about this sort of U.S. News and World ranking. That's an artificial ranking. That's meaningless. So I hope we can help students understand that fit has many characteristics to it, and broaden one's horizons, and then many more institutions become justifiable opportunities. You're not quite as narrowly pigeonholed. But wherever you end up, I've read a lot of research that says even if you don't get into your first choice schools, once you've been selected and you've selected that school, the love relationship begins. The students begin to realize this is the place that was intended for me. And I think the first thing that I would encourage students to do is to sort of drop the notion that you're not someplace you were not intended to be.
Okay.
Embrace the institution that selected you and that you've selected, because you've got a multi-year relationship ahead of you. And more students than not, the majority of the students I've known have deeply fallen in love with the institutions that they've ended up at, even if it wasn't the one they would have forecast that they've attended. Once you're there, though, there are really important ways to best take advantage. And I'll start with a couple and then let you probe some others that you want to hear from. But I do think that first and foremost is to get to know your faculty. I think the majority of the students that I've spoken with over my long career who have lamented not knowing the faculty. They get towards the senior year and they can't name a faculty member who could write a reference for them. And I said, well, did you wait for them to call you? Because they're not going to.
They're not.
They're busy. They've got many students. If you're at a research university, their research is probably driving them. If you're a teaching institution, they have a lot of students. Number one, no matter what school you go to, get to know your faculty.
Yes.
Virtually every school in America that I know of has some kind of a take your faculty to lunch or take your faculty to coffee program where the lunch or the coffee is subsidized by the institution. Yet 90% of the students I talk to have never taken advantage of it. So if you're listening to this broadcast, you be that student or you be that parent that guides your son and daughter in saying, look, you do the things that the other students may not be taking advantage of. If there's a faculty member you want to get to know better, do so. Most faculty, and I'm sure, Greta, you've had the same experience I've had, when a student calls a faculty member, they email or they stop by office hour and say, could I spend a little extra time with you? The faculty love it. They actually wish more students would do that. So I would say number one on any list of how to optimize the collegiate relationship and the collegiate opportunity is really take the time to get to know your faculty member, get to know them personally. I had a great career center director who used to talk about building your board of directors, a personal board of directors. And you would say that by the time you graduate, you should have 12 people on your personal board of directors. And they should include several faculty members. They should include staff that you've met who are really, mentors to you. They might include some alumni that you connected through the alumni networking. It might include some community members. It might include a faculty, a family member or two. But but be deliberate over the course of your time in college in building your personal board of directors. By the time you graduate, you've got a whole cadre of people who are fighting for you, who will suggest things to you, whom you can call on for ideas, whom you can run past job opportunities. So anyway, I've jumped too fast from day one, get to know your faculty members. Graduation day, have a personal board of directors, and there's a whole host in between. Let me pause for a second to see if that makes sense to you.
It absolutely does make sense to me. I'm so happy that we're on the same page about really everything as far as fit is concerned too. I'm not just talking about, I love this university because, my parents went there or whatever. It's a feeling more than anything else. Like you said, it's a lot of things that go into it. Like, for example, the weather, the climate, the people, the buildings, how welcoming is it? How do you feel walking across campus? How do you feel thinking about yourself as a student being able to progress there? Does it look like some place that's conducive to your learning? All that stuff goes along with fit. And then when you're jumping, even though you jumped ahead, it's great because I have told the students in the past, and we talked about it on this podcast as over the weeks, about getting to know your faculty, getting to know your staff, spending time, making an intentional effort to know your faculty. They should not have no clue as to who you are after you've been in their classes. And you need to go to office hours and things. And so, if you're a shy student or, kind of reserved, you have to get out of that. You have to actually become vulnerable, go, and you're going to find that professors, staff members, people that are on a college campus, they are there to help you. And so that's really their thrill. They want to see students come and ask them something. Students want to spend time. Students want to get to know them. And those relationships can be very strong and can help not only with letters of recommendation, but just in your path throughout your entire life. Right. With the people that you have gained access to and made yourself available to as well. So I love that. And those are two great suggestions. So beyond actually embracing where you are, kind of like, I'm here and I'm going to make the best of it. And I'm going to get my people. I'm going to find my people who are going to be the ones that, like, I love that board of directors thing. I mean, I've not heard it coined that way before, but that is just so perfect. So what other things can you mention that could be helpful to students as well?
So, I think that among the early challenges for a lot of students is, where am I going to get involved? Do I sit back and take my time and figure out clubs I might want to join, or, communities I want to be a part of? The typical first year student, overextends.
Yes.
And I actually think that's okay, as long as you don't overextend for the entire year.
Too much, exactly.
But at the start of the year, when there's some kind of an activities fair, there's a way in which you really get exposed to sort of all the options. Take advantage of them. Get yourself on a lot of mailing lists, but then be strategic. Sort them out. Figure out the ones that are really most of interest to you. Go to a lot of first meetings, but be strategic about the things you want to persist with, and take best advantage of them. If you want to, over the course of your time at college, figure out the things that you're going to make longer term investment in, it's going to happen because you've really sampled well. And again, I think the students who are most successful are the ones who are able to take advantage of the multiple opportunities. I often joke that you have 10 toes and 10 fingers for a reason, because you can stick one toe and one finger in a lot of different areas.
Right.
Get a sense of them, but then narrow your perspective. By the end of the first semester of the freshman year, you ought to have a handful of engagements that are the ones that you're really exploring more fully. And if you're an arts student, it may be dance troops or a cappella if you're a singer, or it could be visual arts if you're a painter. If you're an athlete and you want to get involved in intramurals or club sports, if you're interested in politics, there's going to be political societies and discussion groups. But again, not unlike the thing we said about faculty, these groups will be a little more open. They'll be tabling out in front of the student center.
Yes.
They'll be emailing you, ad nauseum. But try very hard to overcome whatever resistance you might have to being the stranger walking into a room. And look, we're going to talk a little bit about comfort.
Yes.
Because the thing that I think is going to be key is, what's the degree of discomfort you could put up with? The problem is that to the extent that people are expecting college to be comfortable, I think that's going to be problematic. Because very little about the collegiate experience is truly comfortable. If you're a student of color, there's going to be no shortage of discomfort.
Right.
If you're approaching a field of study, you're a humanities student, but your college demands you do science and math courses, you're going to have discomfort. If you're an introvert and you need to just walk into a classroom or walk into a club meeting, there's discomfort. And I really think if we can have an honest conversation about the degree to which you can handle discomfort, and I think thinking about that up front, literally having a conversation with your parents or your peers before you even step foot on the campus about discomfort is going to make your experience more comfortable.
Right.
And I don't know if you talk about that in the work you've done, but I feel like putting up with discomfort has gotten much more difficult for young people. And I'd love to be able to guide students into understanding that you can manage discomfort. You should not put up with anybody who's going to deliberately make you belittle you or make you feel less than you are. But being aware of the fact that part of the collegiate experience is experiencing discomfort also helps you optimize that opportunity. Because that's going to happen with just being if you have a randomly assigned roommate. Oh my gosh.
Absolutely.
You walk into a dining hall and it's like, what? There's nothing here. I'll eat.
Right.
Or you've got all those clubs around there soliciting you, and you're just a little uncomfortable being the loner walking in.
Absolutely.
But if you can anticipate that, prepare yourself, you will be way ahead of others in terms of
Right.
taking most advantage of the experience.
Right.
Does that resonate with you?
It absolutely does. And I just want to add that there's going to be discomfort wherever you go, even if you don't go to college. There's just discomfort in life, period. And I think having a conversation about it, maybe with your parents or your guardians or someone that you look up to, like a mentor or anyone, will help you. Because like you're saying, I had not thought about this in all honesty. I have thought about, not being accepted because maybe you're a person of color, or maybe some discriminatory things going on against you, but not in the way that you've coined it or phrased it. So I think that's perfect, because yes, you are going to be uncomfortable in many situations on a college campus, but comfort does not have to derail you. And that's what I think we're trying to get to. You have to be able to learn how to manage that comfort and go forward, just like you would even if you weren't on a college campus. You have to learn to live, really. And a lot of that is part of the maturation process. But just thinking about it ahead of time, when students are 17, 18 years old, coming on college campus, typical or traditional college age, and a lot of times they haven't mastered those kind of skills. And so having that conversation ahead of time is really key. I think it will really help, because when you're kind of thinking about, yes, I'm going to come up against some problems. Yes, things aren't going to always go 100% the way I want it to. I wish it did, but it doesn't. And plus, we don't even know what's good for us half the time. So that's a good thing. That's a good thing.
Let's carry it a step further. I mean, I think we're both in agreement that the first step towards managing discomfort is just anticipate it.
Right.
And have a conversation about it in advance, and have in mind how you intend to respond to it. And you'll find half the discomfort you anticipated wasn't nearly as bad as you thought it would be.
True.
But most students will reach a point at which some of that discomfort is disabling. And that maybe they will have been a victim of a sexual misconduct or a racial circumstance, or they simply are just struggling with the workload academically, or they have a family issue.
Right.
I think this is where we hit another wall, where some students are comfortable getting help. Either going to the counseling center, or talking to the RA, or asking a faculty advisor, or anybody whom they may be close with. And there are many who won't. And that's another thing I've observed. And if we can in any way influence young people in encouraging them to recognize, one, that moment of disablement, it might even be the right word, but that moment of it becomes more significant, is normal. It's not abnormal. And I think we have so many students who will say, why am I the only one who can't manage this?
Right. But
my answer is, that is not true.
Absolutely not true.
You are the norm.
Yes.
And
yes.
And if I could get any message over to students, I would say, just remember, nearly every student will have some period of time over the course of their collegiate experience when they hit a wall, and that wall may be too hard to get over. Get help. It's okay. There's a reason why we provide, peer support. We provide professional support. We provide formal and informal. We train the faculty. We train the staff. It's okay. And I think that's another area that I would want to emphasize, because I think, again, the most successful students they don't self-harm themselves further by not responding to it. I was part of a research study that looked at the strongest characteristics of student well-being. And one of the four most significant was self-compassion.
Okay.
Students who are self-compassionate, that is, they forgive themselves for an error, they forgive themselves for a flaw, they don't sort of dwell on it and become paralyzed by some failure. The students who are most self-compassionate are by far the healthiest and most productive students.
I would agree.
So I would say I know I'm overemphasizing this, but I see
It's
so many
important.
students who dig themselves a hole and they can't get out of the hole because they just wallow in it. And
Yes,
the
yes,
reality is, having some period of stress that may be more disabling is perfectly normal,
right,
perfectly
right.
expected. Take
Mhm.
advantage of all the resources you have on the campus and move on.
Absolutely.
And
Absolutely.
and it just, I'm like putting a big exclamation mark on that because I've
I
seen that
agree.
happen so many times. Yeah,
I do agree too. And I've seen it happen quite a bit too. And so
yeah,
definitely important to seek help. Even if you're not a person who normally seeks help,
yeah.
you can't do everything on your own. And I think this is like the resonating sentence or theme that I've been coming up against over and over again. Everybody needs somebody else, and you cannot do anything alone. You need others, you need help, you need to be able to get that help and ask for that help. And that's so important. And so I'm just very on point with what you're saying as far as what
Thank
these
you.
students
Yeah,
do need. And I believe that it's certainly all true.
yeah, yeah. The collegiate experience has so many aspects to it, and
Mhm.
can feel overwhelming. And I think it's also worth talking about. To what extent do you not only accept that parts will be uncomfortable, but to what extent do you actually deliberately seek discomfort?
Okay.
When I was asked when I first started in student affairs, and people said, "Well, what do you do for a living?" I still, on the one hand, I could just recount, all the departments that I worked with.
hmm
But then I would turn and I would say, what I really do is I comfort the disturbed and I disturb the comfortable.
There you go.
That's my job.
hmm
And that's an expression that's derived from a faith-based
hmm
poem that I once heard.
hmm
But I said, believe it or not, my job is if somebody's too comfortable, I try to make it a little more disruptive. And I'll give you a good example. In my last years at Duke, we noticed that a significant number of entering freshmen and women would self-select roommates who were very much like themselves. At
hmm
one point, we saw that almost half the class, mostly white and wealthy, were choosing white and wealthy
hmm
students who were from, not because they were deliberately trying to isolate themselves, but
Right.
it was a lot more
Comfort. That's
comfortable
a
to
comfort
choose
thing.
somebody from their school, and their
Yes.
school was within the
Just like them.
socioeconomic.
Yes.
So I approached the president and the provost and said, I would like to remove the option for choosing a roommate.
Okay.
I would like to require that everybody at Duke have a randomly assigned roommate and create a more uncomfortable exposure. I
Right.
think, and to their credit, they all said, go for it.
Okay.
And in my, nearly last year at Duke, to the chagrin of the students, we removed the option for self-selecting a roommate. And then we worked with a faculty member who tracks sort of relationships, and we're able to demonstrate that students were much more comfortable with others who were different from themselves, that friendships outside of their race and religion persisted longer. I mean, the evidence was
I believe it.
compelling that by remove. So I do think that this sort of tension between comfort and discomfort, I would also encourage students, sort of explore your discomfort, not only accept that it's going to happen. I'll give you one other story if you don't mind. Stories. My
Sure.
daughter was a first year student at college, and she had no idea what she wanted to study. I mean, she was literally approaching, her middle of her sophomore year when she had to choose a major, and she was all over the place. And one of her floor mates dragged her to a linguistics talk.
Okay.
And my daughter said, I don't even know what linguistics is. But she got dragged to this linguistics talk. She absolutely adored what the faculty member was talking about in terms of language acquisition and how the
Right.
brain processes language and culture and context. She declared herself a linguistics and cognitive science major. I will just fast forward 15 years later, now that she has her PhD in cognitive neuroscience and is works as in the field of research in neuroscience, all because she got dragged to a linguistics lecture. So
Yes.
I can't say how strongly, go back to the 20 toes and fingers. You know,
Yeah.
check things out. You know, you
Right.
hear there's
Right.
going to be, if there's a speaker on campus coming, and there are speakers on campuses, you know, nearly every day,
True.
go sit in on one. You know,
Hmm.
there's
Hmm.
no law that says you can't stay the first 10 minutes and go, this is not for me.
Right.
You know, you know, I think the most successful students are the ones who really see college as a buffet,
Yes.
and
Yes. I love that.
do a lot of tasting.
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
yeah, and also remind people, you know, your first job after college is not your career. I think we overemphasize this term career, and we
Hmm.
call the career centers on campus, I think, are misnamed. They ought to be called first job after college centers,
Hmm. Right.
because I don't know anybody except, you know, maybe physicians, you know, and in a few professional practices where you sort of have to make the decision early on. I know more people whose careers evolved years after they were in college, after they've tested many other fields.
Hmm.
So, you know, I also try to encourage students not to get too hung up on what's my career going to be.
Right.
You know,
Hmm.
what's my first job? What's
Hmm.
my experience after college? Am I going to do Teach for America? Am I going to consult at McKinsey for 2 years?
Hmm.
Those are gap experiences. Those are
Right.
just ways to round out your education with some experiential backdrop.
Yes.
I think most people get, you know, sort of hold of what their career may be years after they've been in college.
True.
So I say, cut yourself some slack. Don't be so
Hmm.
fixated on, you know, career
Hmm.
trajectory,
Hmm.
because that's not important. What's important is, what are you going to do when you're done with college that brings you pleasure at that time, that gives you a chance to practice what you've been learning, and
Hmm.
helps you hone in on what you may be doing later in life. I think the current generation has 3, 4, 5 careers before they
True.
retire.
True.
Because I,
A
you know,
lot of times, right in a row.
yeah. So, you know, the picture I'm painting is one
Hmm.
of sample a lot,
Hmm.
you know, test yourself, give yourself the opportunity to know more about yourself. Those years, if you're a traditionally aged student, are formative. You're still coming to understand yourself.
Right.
There are negative issues to resist. You will have peer pressure to do things that are not in your favor, whether
Hmm.
it's substances or,
Hmm.
you know, abusive relationships,
Right. Hmm.
or you know, health matters. I mean,
Hmm.
you know, if you take care of your body, and now, you know, you're in a partying atmosphere that, you know. So I also think it's worth really, you know, figuring out, what are your boundaries,
Right.
and
Absolutely.
how are you going to, you know, be true to what your
Hmm.
boundaries are, whether it's spiritual, physical,
Right.
emotional. These are all things that, if you can be thinking about those even before you start college, if you can have conversations with friends, with family, and even just
Hmm.
sit back and reflect yourself,
Hmm.
because we would be lying as educators if we didn't say you're going to face things that are not going to be to your
Absolutely.
advantage.
Hmm.
And,
Hmm.
you know, are you prepared to say no when no may not make you popular? Now, you
Absolutely.
know, high school has probably been even more challenging in some of those
Hmm.
areas.
Hmm.
The difference in college is that there's just more of it, and
Yes.
it's
Yes.
wider, and it's more, you know, potentially lethal even.
True. True.
So I don't want to neglect, you know, as we talk about all the positive ways in which you can take best advantage. I don't
Hmm.
want to neglect the negative ways and the negative influences you may also want to be thinking about
Hmm.
avoiding.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Mhm.
I love it. I love it. So let's just do a little quick recap and see if
Okay.
I see what I got.
If you
What I got.
captured all that, I'm amazed.
Okay, I know I didn't, but I think I'm close because we had a lot of the same kind of thoughts anyway. So first of all, students need to embrace where they are. Here I am on this campus.
Right. I fit. This is for
Right.
me.
Where I am. This is where I am. And so this is where I am going to explore my opportunities. This is where I'm going to find my people. I'm going to get to know my professors, staff, mentors, get my board of directors set up. Okay, I love that. We are also going to get involved in organizations. I did take some notes, so that's why I'm looking down. But get involved in organizations and do a wide array of organizations. Go to many meetings, and then you
20
can,
fingers and toes.
right, you got 20 fingers and toes. all together. So you can have those in any number of pots, basically. And so go see what these things are about. You don't have to commit to anything right away. Get to know what is available on the campus. And I know even some campuses have the opportunity for people to start clubs when they don't even have clubs in existence that you're interested in. You could start your own club. A lot of universities do that. And so whatever your interest is, find out what they are, go to these clubs, get to know the people. And in these organizations, you're also, adding to your skill, your knowledge, adding to your skills, but it's also giving you a network, which you will need later in life. Okay, you need to evaluate your degree of comfort. Look and evaluate your boundaries, what you will and will not tolerate, how far you will or will not go, and know that for yourself and not as a result of peer pressure or what seems to be the norm for other college students, because we're talking about an individual journey, okay? And this is their individual journey. Also, treat college as like a buffet. You don't have to be totally locked into really anything. You just try to get what you can that's going to be good and beneficial to your life as you move forward in your years there, knowing that, you might change things, knowing that obstacles will come, but being prepared for what you will do to meet those obstacles. And always, always, always remember that you need to ask for help. There are many, many places on campus, around campus. You can reach out to friends, you can reach out to family, but please do reach out. And so that is what I believe our conversation was about.
It's great. It's great. You've captured it beautifully. And there are nuances, you're going to find that every alumni association has some kind of a networking opportunity. So if you want to talk to alumni in certain fields, you can do that. If you do everything that, we both just talked about, if a student does all of that, it's amazing what they will uncover in terms of opportunities. And, neither of us can list them all because there's more than we both could capture, but there's way more than people realize. But if your mindset, this is really about mindset. If your mindset is about exploration, if your mindset is about willingness to take on some discomfort so that you can sort of know what's on the other side of that wall. If your mindset is about getting help when I need help, that's the key.
That's
Just come in with that mindset of I'm going to take advantage of everything I possibly can.
Every single thing.
That's all you got. That mindset will position you for extraordinary success, because you will already be light years ahead of others who probably aren't as willing as you are to go to that lecture or talk to that faculty member over a coffee or at lunch, or meet the alumnus or the alumna who is on campus to give a talk. I mean, the mindset is the key. Having that mindset of I'm really, this buffet is for me. It's been laid out for me.
Right.
And like a lot of other things you can do. I'm a proponent of get a job on campus. There are some families who say, no, I want them to use every minute of their time, whether you need the money or not. I will tell you that every student who worked in my office over the years has had access to a broader network than they ever imagined, because they're meeting all of our staff. They're seeing every guest that comes in the door. So, if you have a little time in your schedule, get a campus job.
Yes.
You will. First of all, I don't know that anybody who, most people have never suffered from having to work a little, and getting paid a little is awfully nice. It helps with spending, but it has residual benefits that extend beyond just the compensation.
Right.
And so I put that out there as something that I'm biased towards. I'm biased towards, 5 hours a week, if you can squeeze it, to do something in the library or be a research assistant or the faculty member. Go to the alumni office and ask if you can, work with the reunions or anything. Anything that gets you deeper into the institution. Anything that gets you deeper in just gives you more exposure. And, so I would add that to the list can go on and on, but I think you've captured well the general sense of it.
Okay. We just need to realize that the education that the students are getting is more than just the classroom.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So
I mean, the synergy between,
yes,
learn it in the
information.
classroom, learn it in the classroom, practice it in life.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Because the best kind of education is one where you get sort of knowledge and now you get to practice with that. And I find that the students who really see the campus as a living learning laboratory take best advantage of what they're acquiring in the classroom and applying in the variety of ways that they experience the campus and the local community. Let me add one more, if you don't mind.
Okay,
Get
sure.
to the local community. I can't tell you how many students I've met in my career who never stepped foot in Durham. Or, when
Right.
My God, what a wonderful opportunity. If you're from somewhere else in the world and you're on a campus that you're in a community that you don't know, go learn the community. Go find out what that community is like. What are its problems? What are its passions? What are its benefits? Volunteer in the local schools. But if you spend 4 years somewhere and you never really got to know the community in which your school was located, you've really lost the phenomenal opportunity.
You certainly have. I would agree with that.
Yeah. So
I
have so many I could, but you get the gist.
Oh, I do, and I'm in agreement with every single thing you've said. We are on the same page, and we want the student experience to be the best that it can be, and that includes all of the things that we've mentioned today. Just doing what you need to do to make sure that you are there and you're getting every single bit, every drop, everything that you could possibly be getting from your education. Yeah. And then you can translate that to your life later once you graduate, going, giving back. All of that is so important.
Yeah. Perfect.
All right. So thank you so much for joining us today. I might get you back out here. You have so much to say. I'd love to.
I love talking about higher ed. I love talking about students and young people. And I admire so much your work and the book you've written. It couldn't have been better timing for it. So, kudos to you. And anyone who doesn't have a copy needs to get one immediately.
You heard it here. Thank you so much, Larry.
Thanks, God. Take care. Be well.
You too.
Thank you for joining us today on EducateU. If you wish, you can send me your questions or comments about the college going process or the podcast contents by sending an email to Dr. Greta at GretaOliverConsulting.com. Also, beginning each week after the podcast airs, check for a companion blog on my website's blog page at GretaOliverConsulting.com. My book, College Roadmap, Essential Tips for First-Time College Students and Their Families, is available for sale on Amazon.com. Join us next week for another tip or strategy to make the road to higher education easier for your student.